All right, because I don't think I can do it justice by memory, I'm going to read to you Reagan's bio because he's such, he's such a neat guy, and really, I think he's going to fit our culture, our team. He gets what we do. I think you guys are going to get a lot out of this week. So forgive me, I normally don't like to read things, but I wanted to make sure I did it justice. So Reagan's consulted on storytelling, culture, and leadership training at companies like Nike, Pepsi, Western Digital, Home Depot, and Kimberly-Clark. He served as the chief storyteller at the innovation consulting firm Calypso. Taught business leadership courses at Texas State University, Trinity University, and Angelo State University. As a Teach for America Corps member, he was a high school English teacher and a theater director on the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota, where he led the school to win the state one-act play competition for the first time in their school history. Reagan believes any moment people are gathered in a room is a gift and an opportunity for collaboration and productive dialogue. But unfortunately, most leaders and organizations waste this opportunity on a daily basis. This reality led him to co-found Assemble, a consulting firm focused on designing new ways for teams to collaborate and do their best work together, which really sounds like us, right? He's passionate about the work of the Epilepsy Foundation, performs improv regularly around Austin, and probably knows more about Batman than you do. So there's a question you're going to have to ask him. So Reagan, come on up here. We'll do our transfer, and you can get going. I'll pull yours up.
Good morning. Good morning. Is my mic working? Can you hear me? Is this fine? Thank you. Thank you. Because I came in, and I sat on the front row alone, and I thought to myself, I'm already blowing all of my credibility. These people are like, look at this loser by himself on the front row. Real quick, let's have everybody stand up. Oh, yeah, these chairs are terrible. Oh, yeah, these are those terrible chairs. Okay, sorry, I forgot about the swivel chair. Stand up. Let's take a quick, deep breath with one another. Let's breathe in and out. Let's do one more. In and out. One more time. In and out. I want you to sit down. Wait, no. After I say this. If you have ever, sit down after the statement if it applies to you. Grab a seat if you have ever randomly woken up at 4 a.m. in the morning and couldn't fall back asleep, and so you thought, well, I'm already up. I might as well open up my laptop and send a few emails because people are going to see that I was up at 4 a.m. sending emails, and they're going to think I'm really, really productive. Grab a seat if you've done that. Don't lie. Yeah. Okay. I got another one for you. Grab a seat if part of your regular dialogue, your vernacular, when people ask you, how are you, instead of saying good, or instead of saying, well, I'm great, but I just got a dog, you say you have something on your vernacular along the lines of busy per usual. Oh, it's a marathon and a sprint, brother. I'll be good as long as 2018 closes out sooner rather than later. Okay, last one. Grab a seat if whenever contemplating like your greatest contribution, for you to do your best work, for you to operate at the highest level, you've thought to yourself, I want to do that, but it's going to nearly kill me. For me to operate at that level is going to require superhuman strength. Grab a seat if that applies to you. And if you're still standing, you guys are liars. Sit down, Nicole. Sit down. God, I'm trying to prove a point. This is getting videoed. I'm going to show it to my mom, okay? I tell you what, this is a conversation that I've been able to give a few times around the city, and people keep asking me to do it because I think that there's something in the water about our best work and about what it requires of us. And so I'm excited to have an interactive discussion with you today. We're going to do some talking in small groups, and I promise it'll be fun, and it'll go by. But I like to start with gratitude, because we just got to stop and do that. Thank you for filling out the surveys for those of you that did. And I've talked with Jennifer. There's some stress, there's some shifts, there's all kinds of work going on. All of you wish that the laptops were back open. I totally get it. But can I this is not a preachy thing, but can we just stop for a second and realize that we're here with work in a country that allows us to go to yoga on the weekends and have dogs and go to restaurants, and we have health benefits. Let's stop for a second and think about what we do have to be grateful for. Think about that, and then turn to your neighbor and say, you know what, right now in my life, here's the thing that I'm really grateful for. It could be the cup of coffee that you had this morning. It could be the future drink that you're going to have tonight. It could be your family. Turn to your neighbor real quick and say, here's what I'm grateful for right now. Go for it. All right. All right. Very good. Come on back. Come on back. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a lot of this dialogue because I think it's important for us to learn. When I taught 10th grade English, there was this thing that my mentor told me. The person who's doing the speaking, the person who's doing the reading, and the person who's doing the writing is the one who's doing the learning. So I believe that we need to discuss today. But when I do call us back, if you would, come on back with me so we can move on. I promise there's going to be plenty of time to talk. Another thing that I want us to come to an agreement on is after we talk, I think that it's only, it matters for us to be able to hear what everybody else in the audience said, not just me. So I like to operate on this principle of, instead of saying, here's the thing that I said, brag on whoever you talk to if they said something that really stood out to you or something that you think, oh man, that was really important. So that would look like you sitting next to someone and saying, hey, Susan over here said this really beautiful thing that she was grateful for. I wanted to share it.
Ginny over here just got a dog, Penny May.
Penny May. Penny Lane. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Who else? What do we got? What do we got? Go on.
Vacation. She's thankful for her upcoming vacation.
Where are we going?
See family.
To see family?
Family.
Where?
Florida.
Florida. I like it. Awesome. What else? Go on.
Having the ability to go to the south of France for a project for GPJ.
The south of France. That's for work? La-ti-da. Okay. One more. Go on.
Very grateful for her kids.
I love it. I hope if my mom was at a conference, would she say that? I don't know. I want one more. One more. We'll do two more. Go ahead. These guys hate me with the mics. I'm sorry.
Melanie, and some people might grumble because we're very fortunate, but working from home and not sitting in traffic.
Yeah. Close us out.
All right. I got to work out this morning.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you. That's the process that we'll follow as we move forward. Sir, on the camera, can I come down in the front? Can I do that? I like that better. All right, let me tell you a story. I used to teach this class at Trinity University down in San Antonio. It was a business leadership class, and I co-taught it with my boss at the time. He was the CEO of the consulting firm that I work for. And we wrote this curriculum together and delivered it together to college students. This guy was my idol. He's like Richard Branson. You know, like he's like 55, but looks like he's 35. The girl that I was dating probably had a crush on him. He literally owns an island. Like, he was one of those kinds of guys. He was my idol. And he burns the candle at both ends. He runs really fast. And I remember one day we were doing a session on time management and productivity. And whenever he got up to deliver his part of the session, he pulled up a slide. There was a screenshot of an email from me at 4:30 something that morning. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, I can give you all kinds of productivity tips and tricks, but I'll tell you one thing. For you to make a difference, for you to fulfill your potential, are you waking up at 4:30 in the morning like Reagan over here? If you're really going to fulfill your potential, you need to wake up earlier and stay up later and run faster than everybody else. This was his MO. And I drank that jet fuel for 5 years. I was so honored. Jet fuel burns hot. It also burns fast. And after a while, I had to realize that perhaps my best work was not the output that I had to offer. Perhaps my best work involved a different kind of a conversation internally. And so that led me to leave that world, start my own business, and try and understand some of these themes. I don't know that we really want productivity at all costs when it comes to our work. I don't know that we really want to feel like we're burning the candle at both ends when it comes to our work. Yet so much of our identity can sometimes be tied up in that. So what do we really want? I don't know. I think we want to believe that we're good enough. I think we want to find work that challenges and replenishes us, to believe that there's more to life than our pace. What else do we really want when it comes to work and fulfillment? What do you think? Balance. What else? Purpose, yeah. What else? Collaboration. Quality? Yeah. Gratitude, come on. Passion, yeah. Pride.
For it to not feel like it's work.
For it to not feel like it's work, yeah. Come on. I think my synthesis of a lot of that is what we really want to believe is that we're capable, we're doing a good job, we belong. Here's the thing. We can't manage the amount of things that come onto our plate all of the time. We can't manage the influx of client requests or complaints. What we can manage is the mindset. We can manage perspective. So today I want to talk about 5 mindset shifts that have really helped me as I've tried to kind of decouple myself from finding so much identity in my work. This isn't about getting less work because, again, I don't think we can control that. But I do think that the battle's about identity. I asked a question in the survey, how agree or disagree? Who I am in my work, they are one and the same, right? Or I'm a different thing and my work is a different thing. You want to know what's funny about that? Of 83 of you that responded to that survey, 60 of you did 5 right down the middle. I wonder why. I don't know. I wonder why. Like, why did the majority of you put it right in the middle? Because you didn't want to pick one? Or is that really it? I don't know. So let's redefine what our best work looks like. This is the conversation I want to have. I want to try and understand how this group processes what our best work looks like, and hopefully walk out of here with a few different changes in perspective. That's kind of boo-boo. So let's redefine what our best work looks like in 5 acts, 5 discussions, 5 mini lectures, if you will. The myth of hard, the fear of easy, flowing where the water already flows, creating our own standards, and redefining the hardest part of our work. For those of you who need an agenda, this is it. For the myth of hard, I will give you an alternative. For the fear of easy, I will tell you a parable because my dad is a pastor. Flowing where the water already flows, we'll talk about a false belief, creating our own standards. I'll give you a charge. And redefining the hardest part of work, we'll do a reframe. Let's talk about the myth of hard. So I go to counseling. And one time I was talking with my therapist after a particularly productive week. I just started my own business a year and a half ago doing this, workshops and talks. And I remember after a particularly productive week, I couldn't find within myself like the ability to give myself permission to be proud of the work that I had done. I remember after a really productive week of selling business and delivering work and having great experiences with people, I still couldn't stop and celebrate that moment. And she said, Reagan, what do you think is the deal there? And I just remember thinking to myself, it's got to be harder than this. It's got to be harder than this. My best contribution, it's got to hurt a little bit more. I've got to suffer a little bit more for it to matter. I see some nods. You feel me? What is that about? That's a nasty feeling. This is the framework that we're going to go through. I'm going to tell you what I used to do, what I'm learning to do, and then we'll talk about some ideas that you might try, and we'll have a group discussion. So when it comes to like this myth of things being really hard, the alternative, well, let me tell you this first. Here's what I used to do. I used to believe that everything worth attaining must be difficult. I used to not celebrate the easy wins. I took life really serious, judged those who weren't visibly as exhausted as I was. Yeah. Well, yeah, busyness is this badge of honor that we wear sometimes. It's a tired battle. And then the last one, I used to feel connection to those who were beaten, battered, and bloody by choice. Like it was this fraternity of the wounded. And we really identified with that. And you think to yourself, is this really the community that I want to be a part of? Now, don't get me wrong. I believe that finding belonging anywhere is important in any work environment. But I would also propose that there's some important shifts that we can make. One of my favorite poets is Rainer Maria Rilke. He's got this line that has always haunted me. Almost everything serious is difficult, and everything is serious. Son of a biscuit, what is my life? Yeah. But just because things are difficult, because they are. Life is difficult. Work is difficult. Being a human and interacting with other humans is difficult. Just because this is the truth does not mean that it has to wear on our souls at such a terrible rate. Here's what I'm learning to do. I pick things that I allow to be hard. I decide where I place my energies. Key number one here, the majority of the energy that we place is the internal energy. And by that, I mean the things that we choose to give our attention to. Have you ever heard the line, show me what you pay attention to, and I'll tell you who you are? We can run circles in our minds by paying attention to things that are not in our control and that do not matter in the long run. This is a cheesy one, but the 5-5-5, you ever know that one? Or 10-10-10? Will this matter in 5 minutes? Will this matter in 5 days? Will this matter in 5 months? If not, should I pass? Should I move on? Celebrate things that turn out to be more simple than I thought they'd be. Let me tell you, preparing for things like this, oh my Lord, I used to wake up at 2 in the morning because I thought that it had to be that hard. But then you stop for a second and you go, I know how to do this. I'm a grown man. like I can get up and give a talk. I've been doing it my whole career. Why is this hard? Why is this difficult? Number one, we're confused about what matters. In the long run, for real, we're confused about what matters. We believe that there's a direct connection between how hard something is and how worthwhile it is. That's not equal money. That's not equal. And then we secretly want things to be hard so others believe that we deserve any good fortune that comes our way. If I had a success on that thing, on that event, and I did it without breaking a sweat, or it came naturally to me, or I caught an easy streak, ooh, let's hope no one finds out that. Right? Because it needs to be a lot more difficult than that for it to matter. Here's a question. Ooh, I like this one. Is this actually hard? Or am I choosing to make it hard so I can eliminate my fear that it might be easy? All right. So here's what we're going to try. Check where you're finding your identity. and how busy you are or how productive you've chosen to be. Busyness is a flurry of activity. Being productive is choosing the things that you're going to do and doing them and paying attention to the things that matter. Let's talk to our neighbors. Currently, where do you find yourself? And be honest about this. Do you find yourself struggling with the busy thing? I feel like this is the culture. I feel like I got to be busy. I feel like the people on my team celebrate that. Or maybe you've had a journey where you've started to free yourself from that and kind of emancipated yourself from worry, and you're able to focus on things that are more productive. Share that. Let's take a couple minutes and just dig into that. Where are you? Are you on the busy side or the productive side? Go on. You can join these guys or okay, cool. Yeah.
A microphone, and you can throw it from person to person.
Oh, stop it.
You set it up.
Yeah.
I meant to, and I forgot. It's so awesome.
That's unbelievable.
And it's too hot.
Okay. And is it just project out of itself?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
It's already hot.
Oh, it's on it. Yeah, it's already hot. Yeah, and I just have to kind of introduce what it is. Okay. Make it throw it around and yeah, it's really thick. Yeah.
All right, all right, all right. Come on back, come on back. Man, you got to know, when we talk about does our best work have to kill us, we'll get to the subject of fear because that's a thing. But you guys ever have the shower fear? Where you're like in between the shampoo and the conditioner and you're like, today is going to kick me square in the wherever. You ever have that? The shower fear? So I had shower fear this morning. When I go to do the talking thing, are they going to talk to each other or is it going to be crickets? So thank you for just erupting in conversation because all of a sudden a 90-minute thing turns into a 40-minute thing and people like Jennifer are like, okay, you're only getting half the money. So I thank you. Thank you for doing that. So know that this sweet thing here is a microphone?
Yep.
You ever seen a thing like that? I'm grateful for that. It's 2018. What do we hear? What do we talk about? Brag on your partner. Say, man, this stuck out to me, or I resonated with this, or I'm going to remember this. What do we hear in your discussion? And we're throwing it? Are we throwing it, or is that a hazard?
I was ready to catch it. I don't even want to talk. I just wanted to catch it.
Yeah.
No, Lacey has gotten a lot better at being productive after buying a house and having to learn to manage to really be productive with everything, life and work. So she's getting better at it.
Yeah, I hear you. And isn't it funny, we always wish to have all of this margin and extra time, but then when we do, we don't do the productive things we thought we would do. Sometimes we need to have all this stuff on our plate to prioritize. What else?
What we're finding is that the amount of time that you spend in a meeting or in an office doesn't always equal the output.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What else? A couple more.
Where is it? Where? Josh.
Oh, man. That was close.
Bad hands. We were talking that as managers, there's a guilt in not being busy all the time. Like if we get to a point where we catch 10 minutes where we haven't got a new email and we can sit and breathe for a minute, we know that our whole team is still super busy and it makes us feel guilty that we're not doing that with them.
What do we do with that?
Go find something to do.
Okay. I'm doing an experiment right now. I took email off my phone. I took it off. And the point is not that you should do it because I might get in trouble. The point is, I find myself sitting in my car at a red light with 17 seconds thinking, I don't like being alone with myself right now. So again, we're talking about identity here. We're talking about, are we okay with the conversation in our head while we're alone? Have we reconciled some internal conflict that we've got to deal with? What else?
We were talking about how I don't personally have time to be busy because I have to be productive.
Yeah.
So I move busy out of the way so that I can make room for productive.
So do you feel like that allows you to keep attention on the things that are most important and kind of keep away thought loops that are negative?
Most days.
Most days, yeah. Yeah, I hear you. One more?
Do you hold it like this? Okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'll come to you next time.
Oh.
Good, you're good.
Okay. We were speaking about the way we choose to spend our time, and Sarah was saying how she's fulfilled by her relationships mostly, and I mentioned that I am also fulfilled by my relationships, but I felt like a lot of them were a distraction, and then I could use more time spending with myself alone. So,
Yeah.
some shifts.
I hear you. My girlfriend flew out of town on Friday, and she's in Charleston, and I'm going to go meet her on this Friday. And my dad and I talked on the phone this morning, and he said, do you miss Ella yet? And I said, no. Because sometimes we just need to be alone and clip our toenails. You know, like, there's the things that you need to do, like life stuff that you don't get to do. I want to sharpen my knives, for Christ's sake. All right, thank you. That's exactly what we want to do. This is what I want us to say, and this is kind of a tongue twister, but I want you to turn to your neighbor, and I want to say this. I want you to say this to them. I don't care how hard you're working. I care how hard you're working on who you are. Turn to your neighbor. All right. Okay. Come on back. Okay. Raise your hand if you turned to your neighbor and said, no, but I do care how hard you're working. Yeah. We're going to say that 5 more times today, and hopefully some of us will walk away with it ingrained. Next mindset shift, next thing that I think is important to be aware of, and we alluded to it a little bit earlier. The fear of easy. The fear of easy. If it's easy, it must not be important. So anybody know The Gift of the Magi? That story? Written by O. Henry, who? Austin guy, right? So, Jim and Della, they're a couple. They love one another deeply. They're young and they're in love. They don't have 2 pennies to rub together, though. Jim works, and his prized possession is this beautiful pocket watch that was given to him. Family heirloom. Della has this gorgeous, long, flowing hair that goes down past her knees. Christmas time comes around, and because they love one another so deeply, they want to give one another a token of their love. Jim thinks to himself, I know what I'll do. Because Della has such beautiful hair, I will go buy these beautiful combs with the last amount of money that I've saved so that she can put them in her long flowing hair. Della thinks Jim cherishes that pocket watch so. Might I go get him a chain to keep it fastened into his pocket so he doesn't misplace it? So she decides, in order to do that, that she is going to cut off all of her hair so that she can buy Jim this chain for the pocket watch. And Jim says to himself, in order for me to buy these combs for Della, I'm going to sell my pocket watch. So Christmas comes around. Della's got some short, spiky pixie cut going on. Jim doesn't know what time it is. He's late. And they go to give one another gifts. Della opens up these beautiful combs with no hair to put them in. Jim unwraps this beautiful chain for his pocket watch with no watch to fasten it to. They look at one another and they realize that love was all they needed. The end. When I think about fearing things that are easy, I like that story because oftentimes the greatest challenges are a lot more simple than we think they are. A mentor of mine keeps written in the front page of her journal, it's easier than you think. But sometimes we fear it because it requires of us to let conventional standards go away, like you're supposed to get your lover something for Christmas. So it's easier than that, but sometimes we have to think differently. Here's what I used to do. I used to wake up at 3 a.m. before every engagement because I couldn't believe that I could just show up and deliver. I used to drink before every improv rehearsal or show. Why? Because I was scared that I wouldn't perform well enough. And so to take the edge off, I would go have 3 margaritas at Gloria's downtown. Because I couldn't believe that I could show up and actually have something to offer on my own. I never trusted a compliment. I focused on shortcomings instead of strengths. I feared having extra time on my hands. And I'd hide what seemed to me to be these obvious additions or contributions, because if I think it, it must be obvious to everyone. You know the thing when you're in 3rd grade and you're trying to understand what a rhombus is, and Jennifer finally raises her hand and says, I'm confused, and everybody's like, thank you. Thank you. Rhombuses rocked me in 3rd grade. This is me at 3 in the morning trying to FaceTime a friend in Europe. But I would wake up that early that I could talk to my friends because I couldn't believe that I could just wake up like a regular person. Here's what I'm learning to do. Shift my perspective from one of lacking to one of confidence and believe that I'm more good than not good. My dad always tells me this line. You know what, son? You're doing a little bit better than you think you are. Sometimes that's not true. But let's be honest. Let's be honest. If you're showing up every day and if you're giving your best contribution, I believe that the universe is a little bit more benevolent than we give it credit for. You're doing better than you think you are. I'm learning to trust in my perspective. Maybe someone else needs to hear me say the thing that's true to me, because one of the most powerful things that someone could ever say after you offer something into the world is, I thought I was the only one. Me too. I thought I was the only one. I used to call those Me Too moments, but I can't anymore because of... I used to have a whole talk called Let's Create Me Too Moments. I can't do it anymore. HR issues. I'm learning to celebrate quick wins or success that comes naturally. I'm recognizing areas that I naturally perform well, and I invest more time there. And I heed the wisdom of the Dunning-Kruger effect. I was a poetry major in college. I don't know anything about rhombuses, rhombi for plural, or graphs. So whenever I have a chance to show someone a graph and I know what it means, it's a big moment for me. Let's look at this graph together. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect. Watch this. This changed everything for me, and not in the way you might think at the beginning. So we've got over here, and see, I'm going to blow. I don't know what axis this is. This vertical line. The y-axis, we've got confidence, and on the x-axis, we've got knowledge and skills. So check this out. As we're growing in our knowledge and skills, generally when we begin something for the first time, our confidence is pretty high in the area of ignorance. So think about this. The most car accidents happen with people that are like 16 to 17 years old because they're new and they think they can do it. More gym injuries happen to people who are just starting to exercise in the gym. Whenever we start out and our knowledge and skills are low, our confidence is high. If you have a reality TV show, some people think that that means you can be president. So we have this Mount Stupid here, but here's what happens. We start to know what we don't know, right? We start to see all of our ignorance. So what happens as we're increasing in our knowledge and skills, we start to go into this valley of despair because we think to ourselves, there is so much out there that I've yet to understand. How could I possibly ever grasp everything? How could I ever be as proficient as that person? Because there's always someone better than me. So this is a journey for any new skill or learning area. So we go through this moment where we think, no, man, I'm not getting it. And then slowly, as that wisdom hits us, as we're willing to humbly admit we don't know everything, then we make ourselves available for real learning. And so slowly, we start going back up this slope of enlightenment, and our confidence comes in a form of quiet humility. Most people then say that's the Dunning-Kruger effect. If you're learning something new or you're getting new skills, well, just stick with it and then eventually you'll be enlightened. But as I started to learn this, I found something else interesting. Many of us probably find ourselves somewhere around here in our career. We've been doing it long enough, but maybe we're not a pro. And the shame of what happens here is knowledge and skills are growing. There is something for folks that find themselves here to offer. They've seen enough to be able to make a good contribution. But because they fear all of the things that they don't know, this group in particular is the one who chooses to withdraw and fail to submit ideas and fail to contribute because they think, who am I to do that? There's people so much smarter than me. When we talk about the fear of easy, what I want you to understand is things that are starting to become easier and easier for you because you're proficient and you're putting in the hard work. Just because you're not expert level yet, please do not rob us of your contribution. Please, if something comes naturally to you, a thought, a contribution, an idea, a diverted direction, we trust that you've put in the work to get this far. Please do not rob us of that. Here's another way to put it. Here's what I want you to get. I'm a magician, and I used to do birthday parties. And whenever I would learn tricks, card tricks, do the sponge balls, make the handkerchief disappear in the fake thumb, after I would learn that, sooner or later, I would stop being impressed with the trick because I knew how it worked. And so then that caused me to not want to do that trick anymore because I assumed, I projected my lack of interest on that illusion onto other people, when for them seeing the trick was magical for the first time. What I want you to get here is the magician is no longer impressed by their illusions because they know how they work. But their ability to continue to offer that is the thing that we all cherish and desire so much. So I wonder for you, what is a thing that you're proficient in that you think, it's got to be harder than this. I fear that this is too easy for me to have an opinion on. Why is this difficult? We secretly want work to be hard so we can prove to others that we've earned our keep. We're afraid of being good at something or having it come easily to us because that might mean more responsibility. We want to believe we're always in control, which makes it difficult to accept the gift of ability, talent, and inspiration. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you just have a way of seeing the world that's different than others, and it clicks. Accept that and celebrate it. I love this quote. Anyone know this one? Oh, man. Someone want to read it for me? Come on. Mm-hmm.
Right?
You got it.
Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And I just got the chills.
Right?
It's awesome.
Yo, so why is that true? Why do we get the chills on that line?
It is our light.
Oh, yeah. I hear you on that. What else? Come on. Say again? Right. Yes, thank you. Why can't we accept the good stuff? Is it maybe a mindset? Is it maybe where we've chosen to find our identity? Is it maybe because we believe that the universe is not benevolent? It could be a mindset shift. Questions to ask yourself. What comes naturally to me? Which problems do I solve with ease? What observations do I have about the world that seem obvious to me? Something to try. Think about the things that you spend your time doing, studying or researching, geeking out on, and consider offering more of your perspective and expertise and insight in those areas. How are we doing on time? I want us to talk, but I got 3 more things to get through.
20-ish minutes.
Whoa, we got to move. Okay. To your neighbor, I don't care how hard you're working. I care how hard you're working on who you are. Go. All right, all right, all right. All right. Thank you, thank you. So this next one is called flowing where the water already flows. When it comes to believing that our best work might just beat us bloody, here's a mindset shift that I think is really important. How do I flow where the water is already flowing? How do I stop and take an assessment of the world around me and recognize where energy is already being put, as opposed to believing that I have to come up with a unique solution and perspective to fit this unique moment? Who's already having this conversation? Who's already gathered around this problem? Here's what I used to do. I used to approach a new problem first by identifying all the areas I don't know how to do the work, then curate a list of all the challenges that are going to come my way. Yep. Then I try to invent new ways of solving the challenges I identified alone. Then I believe I wasn't giving my best effort if I sought to make it easier on myself or others, because starting things should be hard. Starting a new business venture or business units should be hard. And then I believe that each new challenge is independent from every other challenge or project I've ever endeavored to do. Let me say that again. I believed that every challenge that came my way was unique and different than ones that had come before. It's not that complicated. There are common denominators and challenges that exist, if only we'll stop and recognize them. Here's what I'm learning to do. Number one, I start with an asset-based mindset, that I have more to contribute than I think, as opposed to identifying all of the areas where I'm deficient. And then I ask myself, what do I have going for me? What is this like that I've done before, and how might I borrow or steal from others? Here's why this is hard. Does anybody not like asking for help? Yeah. Why?
I want to do it on my own.
Right. Yeah. Why else? Trust, for sure. Number one, how are they going to think about me if I ask for help? Number two, are they going to actually fulfill the thing that they say that they can do? Number three, this is all going to come back on me. How's it going to look? We want credit and we'll suffer to do so. Anybody there? You don't have to raise your hand, but I know. And we believe our challenges are special to us. Here's a good question to ask yourself. Where are you inventing work for yourself because you falsely believe that for me to do real work, I must invent all of the processes that I'm going to do? Where are you inventing work for yourself as opposed to taking 1 minute and thinking, who might I run this by? Who might I ask? Who might I call in a favor from? Something to do. I'll send these slides, but you should really do this. Consider what's currently on your plate or soon to be. Stop and think about the people or organizations who have done this before. The next step is very important. Kill your ego. Ask for help, insight, advice, and expertise. But for real, do it. And then remember that this is both enjoyable and important for the other party. Let's also talk about the effects that occur on a personal level. When people ask for help from one another, connections are created. When I show you a little bit that I'm vulnerable and I don't know everything, and you step in and you walk with me, community is formed. When we believe that other people around us might be willing to help us out whenever we don't feel like we have what it takes to do the work, belonging is the feeling that exists. That echoes throughout an organization, guys. But we forget to ask for help. One organization that I work with, they have a meeting every week. And it's titled, "Here's What I Need From You." And everyone goes into the meeting on a weekly basis. And the only thing that they can do is ask for help. Here's what I need from you. It's positively affected the rest of their culture. To your neighbor, do it. I don't care how hard you're working. I care how hard you're working on who you are. All right, all right. I spent a lot of time on the Dunning-Kruger effect because I felt really cool with the graph. So let's move on to the next one. And I'll give you time to do some collaboration here at the end, but let me run through this one. This one might get me in a small amount of trouble. So you can say at the end, Jennifer, yeah, don't listen to that part. Creating your own standards. When it comes to doing our best work, when it comes to making our greatest contribution, so much of the insecurity about it is, but will other people think that it's valuable? Do other people think the way that I did it is the right way? What do other people think about that contribution? I'm not talking about bucking the system and burning down the building. What I am talking about is a mindset shift around where one looks for affirmation. And can we get to a point where we're affirming ourselves more than we're waiting for others to affirm us? And to do that, we need to figure out what our standards are for ourselves. Here's what I used to do. Believe in the standards of others instead of developing my own standards. And when I say standards, I'm talking about the way by which we approach our work. I'm talking about the way that we choose to operate in a group. I'm talking about the way that we choose to share information. I'm talking about the personality that we bring on a daily basis. I used to accept that the way to do work is fixed and finite and inflexible. This is how it's done. I don't want to be kicked out of the tribe, so I'm just going to do it, even though it's soul-sucking. And maybe if we reframed a few of the ways that we did this and changed the standards, it might be helpful for everybody, not just me. And then I used to live for the acceptance that I got from others by wearing my busy badge of courage just like them. And then one day I woke up and I said, wait, if I'm thinking about my own standards, is this really how I want to be? No. It's not. But guys, we fear rejection more than we fear most everything else. And it was really hard. It took me 5 years to stop believing that my greatest contribution existed at 3 a.m. in the morning. Here's what I'm learning. Realize that there are less rules than I believe there are. For real. There are way less rules than you think there are. Recognize that relationships matter more than rules. And I'm learning to have a lot more fun. Here's unevolved thinking. This is the thing that I have to do. I don't enjoy doing it. And so I'm going to grumble about it, and I'm going to let it continue to kill me on the inside. Here is evolved thinking. This is the thing that I have to do. The way that it is being done currently kind of kills me on the inside. How might I get the same result by doing something that comes naturally to me? How might I rewrite the path to do that work that allows for more innovation in an area that I enjoy? How might I view this as an adventure in solving a problem as opposed to this thing that some higher power is doing to punish me? Do we always have the freedom to do this? Of course not. Sometimes you have to do the things. But more often than not, if you're willing to put in the time, we can change the way that we approach the work. Why this is difficult? It's hard to create a path for ourselves and lonely. It can be lonely. It feels good when you can rank yourself amongst your peers, right? And they recognize your status among them, regardless of whether you like it or not. At least you're seen and you're named, and you've got a place. We're addicted to that. It's hard to say what we want, do what we want, and go after what we want. It's just hard. We don't want to be kicked out of the tribe. We don't want to be wrong. All of this is internal. All of this is about where we find our identity. Do I find it in the standards that I believe a good human possesses? Or do I find it in the social mores of the group? This is a big one. Perhaps the greatest undoing to occur within us is to delete the belief that there are more rules than there really are. Pay your taxes, don't kill people. And if you're replacing toilet paper, do it where it goes over this way, not questions to ask yourself: where am I making my work more difficult because I'm adhering to the standards of others? Life can get really difficult for us if we're walking around like wondering whose checklist we're on and what are we fulfilling. If I were to decide what quality effort looks like, what would it look like for me? Yes, then make sure that that's okay with the higher ups, but what would it really look like for you? And what if you adhered to that standard instead of doing what everyone else was doing? Maybe don't do this, but I think maybe you can say, but here's the deal. This is not an exercise in frustration. This is not an exercise in being an antagonist. What this is trying to get you to create the bravery to do something different and move someone's cheese a little bit in order to do the work the way that you feel like it might need to be done. So maybe see, what if you tried something the way that you wanted to do it? Maybe ask them first and be polite. List all of this. This is important. List all of the standards you're following right now. This one rocks my world. I do this every quarter. After each of the standards that you're following, fill in this statement. This helps me accomplish the work that's actually important by. I believe that it's important because socially it's impressed upon me that it's important, but is it actually contributing to the bottom line? And then filter all of your responses and stop following the standards that don't directly contribute to your real work or your sense of well-being.
I don't care how hard you're working. I care how hard you're working.
Yep. Okay. I have 5 minutes. 30 minutes? I have 30 minutes? We're going to slow down. Let's talk about this then. What rules do you follow? What rules do you follow in your work? Whether they're the right ones or the wrong ones, as you operate on a daily basis, internally, what rules are you operating by? What standards, real or imagined? Share those. What's that? Being respectful. Sure, being respectful. Good. Let's move to groups and talk about that. Come on. Uh-huh.
So, and that's where it gets really gray on what you're saying.
I hear you. Who agrees? So you work the way that your clients want you to work. So that's where it gets fuzzy for this. So what do we do? Well, let's do it. Let's figure it out together. What are we going to do?
Set boundaries.
Set boundaries. What does that look like?
Not cute sometimes.
Go ahead.
Turning your phone off after hours at a reasonable time.
Uh-huh.
Or asking questions or setting a timeline as to when you can return information back to them so that they're not expecting it right now.
Gotcha.
You can be honest with your work.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes clarity is the most important thing, not pleasing folks. If I'm clear about what to expect and there aren't surprises, boundaries can exist in a healthy way. What else? Right there.
Work with their personalities.
Work with the personality. How do we do that?
You judge it over the phone, or you judge it by their email, if it's how direct they are, you know who they are kind of after their first couple of calls and whether or not they're going to be a difficult client or not. And you look at the personalities. I don't know. If they're going to give you their cell phone number, they text me. They're like, oh, yeah, now we're texting.
Yep.
So you just kind of know that. I don't know.
Yeah. Don't you think that it's important to recognize that we can't treat every client the same? And choosing to do so is food for folly. Choosing to do so is going to get us down a bad path. What do we got?
I'm going to keep it simple. Build trust.
Build trust. How do we build trust?
Well, I've been with this company, I'm going on, 10 years now, and I have to say with my clients, for the most part, I've had a very positive experience. And after working with them, over time, I've built trust. And once they understand and they can trust that, I'm looking out for their best interest, I really don't have any issues or anything of that nature. So I have a really good relationship with all my clients. Trust.
I believe there was a bullet point on the slide that said relationships matter more than rules. Perhaps when we create a depth of relationship with a client, rules then become things that are negotiable. Rules then become things that we can adapt to. I was looking for a marker, but when we talk about trust, I'm glad you brought trust up. There's this beautiful equation. Ooh, look at me with another math thing. I know an equation for trust. It's called the trust equation. Here's how it goes. Credibility plus reliability plus intimacy equals trust. Here's the pro version. Credibility plus reliability plus intimacy over self-orientation equals capital T trust. Credibility, do you know your stuff? Reliability, do you get your stuff done? Intimacy, do you care about me as a person? Over self-orientation, do I believe that you're in this for you, or do I believe that you're in this for me? We can build trust and try and take stock of where you fall, because generally what I find with the trust equation is that you're 2 of 3, and you've got 1 that you can work on. Thank you, Haley. Give Haley a round of applause. Credibility plus reliability plus intimacy over self-orientation equals trust. There's a way a mnemonic device to help you remember this that involves cuss words that I'll tell you after if you want to come find me. So take stock here. Where do you find yourself? I believe that most people have 2 out of 3, and there's 1 that they need to work on when it comes to developing trust. Credible. I know my stuff on that Dunning-Kruger effect thing. Like, I've got knowledge and skills. Does my client believe that I'm credible? Am I good there, or do I have some learning to do? Maybe I'm new to this area or new to this client. Reliability. Do I do what I say I'm going to do? If my client were interviewed, would they say that when they tell me they're going to send me that thing, that they really do? When they tell me that they're going to show up, I trust them. I don't have to follow up with them. They're a person of their word. Is that you? Are you the person that says you'll do the thing and then they have to remind you to do it? Could that be an area where you work? And intimacy. Yes, sir, I believe that you have to adapt to each client. Maybe they're a little bit more down to business, and maybe they don't want to talk about their family. But there are ways that we can create a bond with anyone by trying to understand what makes them tick. So, have you taken time to assess with your relationships, particularly with clients, how do I create a little bit more intimacy in the relationship? And then divided by, are you doing this because you get the paycheck and because you want to move up? Or are you doing this because you actually care about this person? Is it all about you, or is your self-orientation about the rest? Tangent, but a good one. Thank you. This is what the whole thing's about. When we think about the work that is to be done, it's easy to think about the tasks that are on our plate. It's easy to think that we've got this litany of things that are going to define us, and we've got to do them well, or if we don't, we're blowing it. I argue that the hardest part of work has nothing to do with the items on your to-do list or your calendar. I think that the hardest part of the work is what I call the work before the work, which is how am I on the inside? When I show up, have I taken time to reconcile conflict that's going on inside of me? Because I sure as heck am going to bring that into the world. How do we do ourselves a favor whenever so much of our work is piling on us? By making sure to remember that the way that I am on the inside is going to touch everything that I touch. Here's what I used to do. I used to believe that the hardest part of work was the work itself. Simply put, I used to believe that if I can just wake up early enough and get it all done, then I will have internal peace. Isn't that what we want? Anybody watch Mad Men? Anybody? There's a beautiful scene in the first episode. Mad Men, he works at an advertising agency. He talks about what do people really want? And he says, at the end of the day, all people want is to drive down the street and see a billboard. And it doesn't matter what your product is, as long as that billboard says to your customer, you're okay. Everything that you're doing, you're okay. You're doing a little bit better than you think you are. That's the hardest part of the work. Do I have peace on the inside? Here's what I'm learning. I'm learning to remember that there's work before the work to be done. So what does it look like for me to attend to those things? Is it going to the gym? Is it yoga? Is it magic tricks? Is it cooking croissants for my family? I take ownership of my convictions and my inclinations. I'm trusting them. I'm more good than not good. I realize that fewer people are watching me than I think, and if they are being as judgy as I fear, they're boo-boo anyway. Here's a good drawing. When it comes to following the rules and standards of others like we just talked about, when it comes to realizing that fewer people are watching me than I think, assessing the amount of work that I'm doing, wondering if I'm not as exhausted as them, do I have my busy badge of courage? Am I on someone's checklist? You know what a Venn diagram is? This is my third mathematical thing. This represents all of the people in the world that you think are thinking about you right now. This represents all of the people that actually are. And who is in the middle? Mom, because Mom always thinks about us. We talk about where we're spending our energy. We talk about where we're spending our time. We talk about what we're putting our effort into when we could be putting our effort into doing other things. How can we kill this idea that other people are sitting around thinking about us? I once told my therapist, I said, sometimes I feel like at the end of the day, all of my peers, they tell me that they're busy and they can't hang out, but what they really do is they go to this like conference room and it's like the lights are low and there's like cigar smoke even though none of them smoke. And they take an assessment as to whether or not I'm fulfilling my potential at this point in my life. What a nasty wheel for us to run, guys. What if we just got right in here and believed that we're doing better than we think we are? Why this is difficult? Again, this loneliness thing is tough. It's lonely to define our lives differently than others. We prefer to tackle external challenges instead of internal ones. And if you do this internal work, you might leave some people behind. Let me say that again. If you start practicing this kind of internal dialogue with yourself, you might leave people behind. We like to find identity in our suffering together. And if you emancipate yourself from that, we fear that we might leave them behind. But I argue what really happens is we become a witness for what living differently might look like. I argue that it becomes contagious, that there is a different way to do life that might involve some modicum of freedom and peace. Question to ask yourself, am I putting more effort into what I do or into who I am? Because I'm telling you, everything flows from identity. Where do we find our identity? Have a conversation with your neighbor. Chew on that. Where do you find yourself right now? Go on. All right. All right, all right, all right, all right. Okay, now, ladies. All right, bring it on back. Where are we at? Tell me what your neighbor said. Tell me what stuck out to you. Tell me what you're still wrestling with. Tell me what you guys talked about. Please. Huh.
Oh, I'm focusing on me.
Sure. No, that's good. Thank you. Any thoughts on that? Any thoughts right there? Go ahead.
Hi. I think I'm always focusing on who I am, and that comes out in my work. If I'm being truthful to who I am, it comes out in everything that I do. So it's not hard to put that into practice, and I don't feel selfish by doing that.
How do you stay focused on who you are, as opposed to this idea that we kind of, morph into who we're with?
Well, there's a couple of questions that I ask myself, like the one you put up there about, does this make a difference? Where? Mm-hmm. At work, in my life, to the person that I'm talking to. So there's a kind of couple self-reflection questions that I ask myself on the daily.
Yep, I hear you. And guys, I don't want to do the preachy thing. I really don't. But I believe that we are in a dangerous place right now with the amount of distractions that come our way. I believe we're in a dangerous place. And when we're afraid to be alone by ourselves for 17 seconds at a stoplight, something's going on. I think that regular reflection, journaling, talking to a therapist, talking with people about this is really, really important, because otherwise, if there's no clarity around that for us, of course we're going to morph into whatever container we're put into. I saw something up here. Yeah.
I got a big mouth. I think in order to focus on who you are, you have to quit thinking about what other people think you are.
Right. No one's thinking about you. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, too, I guess I am who I am, and maybe when I'm in other situations with other people, I still stick to who I am, but maybe I see little bits of what I don't want to be or what I don't want to become. I mean,
yeah.
or things overtake me that way.
Oh, absolutely. Can I drop some philosophy on you? Yes. Okay, good. Okay. Carl Jung says, the things that frustrate us most about others give us insight into what we're afraid we might become. The things, or are. The things that frustrate us most about others give us insight into who we are. So as you look and you're thinking, man, that's really not something that I want to do. Consider what elements of that are part of you. What else? Yeah.
I think the other thing too is because I'm talking with Todd and Nancy, and I think also with age as well. Certainly being older than a lot of y'all. Well, I'm not speaking for Todd or Nancy, but learning and over time and the experiences that you go through, that you start figuring things out. And that, like you said, nobody's thinking about me. I'm not thinking about anybody else. Yeah. And you realize that your identity doesn't always have to be put into your work, that you do establish your own identity, I think, if you learn from, past mistakes and such.
And if we're really concerned about doing quality work at the end of the day, which we are, but if we do the work before the work, as I mentioned, of getting solid on our identity, it works out in your favor, right? Because the second that we choose to find a solid identity in who we are is the second that we stop worrying about what other people are thinking. We set our own standards. And guess what? That frees us up to be fearless, to make contributions, to be brave, to be compassionate when we might not have been otherwise. So it works all in your favor. But it's the work before the work, and it's hard and lonely. Go on.
So I don't necessarily think this is a terrible thing, because everybody talks about everybody has their own spiritual gift. You kind of have to know who you are, and for me, I'm a helper. I get joy out of it. I like helping other people. So really, in essence, what I do and how I help is who I am, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
Yeah. So, is it possible, though, to recognize that in order for you to be equipped to give and to help, there needs to be a solid place for you on the inside so that you're providing that value to other people?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'm with you. What else? Gosh, this is good. Let's do this all day. What else? Anything else?
I have one. We were saying how when you meet someone for the first time, oftentimes they ask you, what is it that you do for a living? And an interesting thing that came to my mind was I was at my mom's this weekend, and my mom had friends coming over, and my brother asked, what is it that they do for a living? And she said, and he instantly was like, okay, so I have nothing in common with them to talk about, because I have no interest in what they do, and what I do is nothing related to what they do.
Yeah.
So it's funny how we define ourselves instantly by our work rather than finding other things you can relate to with them.
Love it. I got a whole workshop on this. What's a workaround? How do we create more authentic connection? What do we do? Go ahead.
So to piggyback on that, there's a lot of leadership programs that, as you grow and want to experience from who you are as a worker and an employee, what you just said, that is the absolute last thing that anybody ever asks if they ask it. once you go through these programs.
Cool. Yeah.
Like Austin Leadership, you define yourself on who you are as a human.
Yeah.
Your compassion, how you give back, your involvement in the community, not what you do for a living, because nobody really cares. It's about who you are as a person and how you do it.
No one cares. And let me tell you what, when we talk about creating your own standards, that mindset shift we talked about a couple back, create a standard for yourself that you decide to create more authentic connection with people, and that you're not satisfied with the BS, what do you do question. Let me tell you, when someone asks you, what do you do? It is a cry for help. That means, please, sweet Jesus, will you say something that I can connect with so that I feel less awkward and feel like I'm not the only one here? Because I've already been to the bathroom 3 times, even though I don't have to go. Try this on for size. Instead of when someone asks you what you do, number one, have compassion on them, and don't think that they're sizing you up, because if they are, they're boo-boo. But most likely they're not. Most likely they're just looking for a way to escape the awkwardness of the situation, and offer them something like this instead. Let me tell you what I'm most interested in right now. Let me tell you a challenge that I'm trying to solve and what I'm learning. Let me tell you what I'm most interested in. Let me tell you what my other thing is. It's magic if you wanted to know. How might we pivot from that a little bit? Over here, somebody? Yeah, please.
We were just talking about how instead of the what do you do question, which I never know how to answer, I always ask people, what do you like to do?
Yeah.
Like, what are you into?
Yeah.
And that always makes the conversation way more interesting.
Totally. Here's a pro one that's hairy, and if you want to try it, I would really invite you to. Ask someone, what do you like? Describe yourself to me. Whoa, what if someone said, I'm a pretty cautious person? And then you might be able to say, well, tell me a story about why. Like, why are you that way? And then we get to do this, and we say, I'm not the only one who has feelings. One more. Anybody? Okay. Please, yeah.
At least it's not the cube. I don't know.
Mike's hot.
Okay, so what I told Josh is what I do is who I am. What I do in work, what I do as a mom, what I do with my family. And anyone who's ever spent time with me outside of work knows that what you see at work is the same person outside of work. Mm-hmm. I try to take myself and put it into every situation. I may change how I say something in small town USA, where I grew up,
sure, versus
how I address the same situation in the office.
Right.
But essentially, what I do is who I am.
Yeah.
Here or there.
Sure. Are you good with that?
I'm good with who I am.
Good.
I'm a good person.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So there's the answer, right? There's not a sin in your identity being what you do. It is what I do. This is how I am. This is what I'm like. But what we're trying to tackle is the danger of believing that the challenges that exist in work and the way that I think that I'm being assessed by other people and where my place is in the tribe at work defines who I am. That's so good. Something to try. Consider the challenges that you face when doing your work and determine whether it's a knowledge or skills issue that you're facing, and if so, you have control over that, or an identity issue that you're facing. When you run into a challenge, think, do I have the capability to learn this? Do I have the capability to acquire this knowledge? If so, let me take action. Or am I taking offense to that because I fear that that's what people think about me? And I need to realize that no one's having that private conversation. Or I'm afraid that if I offer this idea and it's not a great contribution, then everyone's going to think that I am not a great contribution. if it's that, we got the work before the work to do. What if you guys talked to one another about this? What if there came a moment when you got angsty on the inside because you felt this identity creep and you realized that, okay, this isn't a knowledge or skills thing. Like, this is something that I feel weird about. What if you said, and blame it on me. Remember that Reagan guy? He said we should probably talk about this. He said maybe if I shared with you how I'm feeling, maybe you could say, I feel that way too sometimes. And that's what we really want anyway. To your neighbor. So good. So good. All right. I'm going to wrap it up for us. So, who knows a really old person? Anybody? Who knows a really old person that's also really wise? Anybody? You mentioned earlier, as you mature, you start to realize things. I heard this quip, in your 20s, you're kind of worried about what everybody thinks about you. In your 30s, you start to craft your life around what you think everybody wants you to be. And then as you move into your 40s and your 50s, you realize no one was thinking about you anyway. When you think about the wisest people that you know, I'm talking about the people who you think, this person is a beacon of maturity and humility and peace. I tell you what a common denominator is. They don't get frustrated that easily. Why? Because they are unshakable on the inside. They have lived enough life to have done the work before the work, to whether the arrows and the stuff that happens to us on a daily basis, they realize, I don't have much time left, and I'm getting these varicose veins. Why am I going to worry about these other things? The wisest people on earth, ladies and gentlemen, have figured out how to transcend the imagined conversation that they believe is going on around them. This is it. Where do you find your identity? Who are you? Do you love that person? Have you found other people who validate who that person is? If so, celebrate that and make time for more intentional time with them. If not, I would suggest you jettison yourself from folks who don't help you value your identity. I really do believe that we all want the same thing. Psychologists have different ways of saying it. Freud says we all want to have sex. Machiavelli says we want power at all costs. Anybody read Brene Brown? Anybody? I think she's right. I think what we all really want is to belong. Because when we belong, work can be hard, but we still belong. We can stay up till 3 in the morning putting name tags in our hotel rooms with our candle that smells nice. And it can beat us down, and we can get cranky, and we can get grumpy, but we still belong. Brene Brown has another wonderful line. So she did all this research on this idea of belonging. And her most recent book says that what I've realized as I've done further research is that belonging is not a thing bestowed upon us by others. We must first figure out how to carry around belonging everywhere that we go. Thank you.
Wasn't he great?